Okay, the next section in your book that I want to speak to is this question of the objective of the finance manager. And um, your book goes into some detail and some storytelling about building up the case that the idea that the objective of the finance manager is to maximize shareholder value by maximizing the stock price of the company. And that just leaves so much out. That is such an oversimplification of the reality of the business world that we meet today. These are the same, trite examples that I was given when I was in my MBA program 30 years ago. And the world is much more complicated than that at this point. And yet still these textbooks contain very little mention of what the long-term value of a company is comprised of in these days of overused natural resources, overexploited human populations, and a shrinking planet. Right? And the thing is that this short-term emphasis on maximizing current share price has had horrific ramifications on people and the planet on which all businesses rely for their foundation. There is no business without natural resources. There is no economy without natural resources. There is no economy without people. And so over time, right, the financial markets are slowly coming to catch up with this idea that business sustainability has to be more than a short-term emphasis on today's share price. And we will go into more detail about how share prices are determined and how you value stock as we continue on in this course. But I wanted to bring up sort of the foundation for the discussion about the question is, what is the objective of the finance manager? And I bring you back, my friends, to 1970. And so, in the world of economics, this is beyond the scope of this class, but there's discussion in the world of economics about what an economy is and what it takes to drive an economy. And the University of Chicago is sort of a foundational area for a school of thought sort of sparked by this very influential guy named Milt Friedman, who said, look, businesses are supposed to make profit. Any other expectation about the social responsibility of business is literally slavery, is basically what he's saying. That, no one has a right to tell somebody else what they do with their money. And so, this very, very influential article came out in 1970, and you got to realize that the sort of the social background of that time was that this was sort of after the New Deal, after, that sort of post-war growth period, and after the Kennedy era, right? And there had been a lot of social upheaval in the 60s, comparable actually to what's going on right now. And there was this sort of push for very activist social policies to try to bring minorities up from poverty and rural poverty, to bring that down as well. And Milt Friedman and the Chicago School struck back and said no. And he was a very influential policy advisor to President Nixon at that time, and kind of was the impetus for the swing back towards minimal government involvement in the economy that we have sort of seen that pendulum going back and forth in the past 50 years. I can't even believe it's 50 years. Meanwhile, though, right, policy aside, and influential, economists and the business world aside, there has been a simultaneous growth in this idea that actually the financial role in a business should take into account the long-term sustainability of a company, which relies on a healthy planet and a healthy people that are, stakeholders that are invested in that business. And so, I just Googled sustainability in corporate finance, and I found page after page after page of both academic articles as well as sort of news articles about how sustainability issues are becoming increasingly part of the financial function in a business. Because business sustainability relies on what we think of as the three pillars of sustainability broadly defined, which are people, planet, and profit, the triple bottom line. And so, my friends, yes, profit maximization, a business cannot be sustainable unless it is profitable and unless it is solvent. That's sort of a given. However, the objectives of all of us as managers are more broad than simply profit maximization at this time, or they better be, or else we're not going to have a future. So that is the end of lecture 4. More later.